Okay. Next topic. DataFlex Reports. Can everyone hear me? I have the feeling from not, but DataFlex Reports, that's not a brand new product. It was called Visual Report Writer before. And let's talk about what are the changes and what are enhanced features. And of course a couple of demos to present the features to you. A lot of new features presented in this version, and the major issues are charts, page layers, images support extended, exporting features improved, workspace support, etc. I will go into detail with all of that. Let's first talk about charts. Charts is a version, is an enhancement that was promised already for a couple of versions, and we implemented charts for area, bar, line, and point charts at this moment. And in the next version, after this, we will enhance that with other formats and also more data series, but we first want to include this. Of course, as you can expect, it is supported in web pages. So if you run your report and you include that in your web application, you will see the chart. It's not an interactive chart, but it will do the chart as well. How does that work? Let's go to a demo of that, and let's make a sales of orders per state chart. Therefore, I start the DataFlex Reports studio by following this link. You get the data warning, and we create a new report. We're using the order entry data. That brings me to this issue, and I can select the customer table and the order header table, and they are automatically linked as in previous versions. Then on the
Vincent, look at the screen.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah.
Let's do that. My screen is this. That's good. So I can follow that.
Yeah, that's
Maybe you need to not extend your screen,
Yeah,
just have it copy the main.
I've had problems with that before. Yeah.
You did that?
No, I didn't. It was showing my screen already. Yeah. It is
Extend.
duplicate.
Is that nice?
Yeah, sure it does, but it was already showing my presentation there. Yeah. So why did it switch back? No. Sorry. This is good that you asked, because I wasn't watching the big screen. My sorry about it. Let's go back again. I want to create a chart for sales sales per state, and so I open the customer and order header table there. The links are there for linking the two tables together, and for the chart itself, if you only want to present the chart, you don't need to put fields in a detail section. You can just skip that. I only want to make a grouping so that I can have the results per state. So I select in the available fields the state column, and I group by customer state. In the summaries, I need to do, of course, a summary because a chart running on all the data will produce a huge chart with too much details. It's better to do that on a summary. So I pick my order total column and make a summary of that. It can be just a summary. You could also pick another one, but let's take in this case the summary. I will not filter my data. I can select my paper size. Let's take A4 landscape and have a bigger chart in the width, and finish my wizard for running the report. Let's suppress some sections in the report so that they not taking up the space. So I will hide this section for the header. I don't want to have the details, hide the section, and I will also suppress the group footer there. Then I want to insert a chart. That's a button here from the toolbar. I put it in my report footer, and a wizard starts up for creating the chart. In this chart wizard, you can select what kind of chart do you want, and if you're clicking on these nodes, you already see what kind of chart it will be. Let's pick a bar chart for this, and let's put the values in there that needs to be used. The reporting fields can be used for what should it be doing. I will use the group name for the category and the sum for the value. The sum is the value on the x-axis and the category is on the y-axis. Group name there. I can put a title in there, orders state. You can change the group name here and say, I don't want to use group name there, but I want to use state as a title. I can pick another palette if I want, a photo design palette, whatever you like in the layout. I can even change the appearance of the tooltips or the values in there. I can turn on legends or don't turn on legends, depending on what I want there. And my chart is at this moment is ready. Let's make the chart wider so that it fits the full width of the section. And let's run the report. And there's my orders per state chart that says how the customers perform. Let's make it also a bit bigger by enlarging this section. Pull down the chart a bit this way. Then we have more space. We need to refresh the data, and if we've done that, it should come up. No, it's too big. It's too big for the page. Shouldn't make it. Doesn't fit on A4, so it doesn't fit on the screen there. Let's refresh the data, and there's my chart again, but now higher in its layout. If you want to modify a chart, you can go here and say chart properties, and play with all the other options. Way more options are there to be set. The initial wizard just picks the base issues, the base settings that you want to play with. You can change your titles, you can change the font of the titles, title alignments, you can say I want to have that far, or I want to have it near, that is in fact left and right and center. I can make subtitles, I can have category titles. I can, in the scale, I can say I want to hide the 0 level. I can have in the lines, I can have minor lines. That means that there are more lines in the chart to be seen. There's also this one to see, and it all applies directly to the chart in my report. And there it is again. Let's go back to presentation. I also prepared a bit more advanced chart. Let's put that there. And let's click it. It asks me for confirmation. It starts the report. The report will be opened automatically. And if I run it,
hello?
It's again. See, let's get going again. Is that weird? Yeah. I've had that before. This chart is running on a function that takes the month's number and the year number out of your order date and produces a chart per year. So there's a section, there's a grouping on years and there's a grouping on months in this report, and my chart is following that. If you look at the report itself, it has a group header here on year and a group header on months, and it has a summary based on the order header and order total. But in this case, it is not a summary as an object in the report, but it is a summary in a function. So we have here a function field which says order totals per month. And that function, that's a feature that was already there in the 3.0 product. If you edit it, you can see returns the summary of the order total at group level 2. And then it will be used in the chart. If you have this chart and you decide that your data set should be different, there's here the button that says change your data source. Don't need to do that at this moment. And finally, another example chart. Let's see if it will work. Don't need to show the rules again. No, this one does good. Perfect. This is a report that uses multiple charts. Let's run it and let's see it. It has a page at the beginning, a starter page. This is not a chart, but it's just a picture of a chart. But if you then browse on, you'll see the charts of the sales per year per vendor or per customer. And if I jump to the end of this report, it shows in a sub-report the bottom 5 customers and the top 5 customers. So you run multiple charts in one report. That's bad. Another enhancement is in the area of
Now you chose extend.
yeah. But I don't want to show you this. Just do this.
But I think it's not that. Isn't it a question of how you run the presenting
Yeah,
thing?
it's constantly switching.
What?
That's better, okay. Yeah. Okay, in the area of the function expert, we have enhanced that by the fact that you can easily navigate through all the functions in your reports. If you played with the DataFlex Reports before, you could pull up the function Explorer, and the function Explorer was a sidebar on the side, and you could see what functions, what user-defined functions there were in your report. But you can also use functions everywhere else in your report to control things like color for your sections, to hide the section, filter expert, etc. There's all kind of filters, all kind of functions. Sometimes it's difficult to find what functions are where and how they are used. So we enhanced with a function expert. Strangely enough, the title is called Function Explorer, but it is the function expert. And it shows you all the functions in your report, wherever they are. So there are user-defined functions and built-in functions like the start color function, as you can see in this picture. By default, it shows all the sections. Then you have to extend the section to see what functions are defined for such a section. But there's also a button, and that's the third button here in the toolbar, and it will filter out all the sections that don't have a built-in function set. So that is the enhancement in function expert. In the area of exporting a report to the outside world, we have extended it with RTF export. That means you run your report and you export it to RTF, which is Word 2007 specifications. So in fact you can export your report and load it in Word, make modifications if you want, enhance text, add that to your information. There's one limitation. If you use this RTF export, you can't have RTF text fields in your report, because RTF cannot embed RTF. That's a limitation of RTF. So if you have RTF text fields in your database and you want to present them in your report, don't go for RTF export. It's not possible. Another enhancement is that on the export that any of the exporting methods now support a page number. Previously you could do it for HTML and for images, but now you can do it for every format. And we also introduced a command line option for exporting a report. And the command line option can be done by individual parameters, and the picture shows what the picture shows in fact the other one. That is the INI file, command line INI file. The name of that file is free of your choice. You just pass the name, and in fact via sections in the INI file you indicate what you want to export. What's the report to be used? What's the export file? What are the options to be used? And each of these options, for example with the PDF export, you can also do in command line parameters if you want. I happen to find the command line INI easier because you can control it from outside. You know exactly what you're doing. It also has an option that says close the report when you finish. So you can have a command line switch that says use this INI file, and if you're ready, then close the DataFlex Report Studio again. So it opens it, exports, close. That makes it easy for batch exporting. Another request that was waiting for a long time is page layers. What is a page layer? It is a design behind the report. So if the report is printing, it first prints the page layer on the screen or in its output, and then it puts the report on top of that. So you can have formatted output. See it this way, if your customer has a picking order, an order list, a form, how they want to present their orders when they print it out, they can have a nice design. You can scan it in as an image and then print your information in the right places in this report. The page layer is a separate file to be designed, but it is done within the studio. And then you embed the page layer inside your report. So inside your report say, I want to use this page layer and make use of that. You can have multiple page layers in one report. You can have them on top of each other, but you can also turn them on and off on the fly and say, for this report I wanted this, for this customer I want to have that page layer. I can even do it on a function base and say, if I'm on page 1, I want to have this page layer, on page 6, I want to have that page layer. Of course, I advise you to make sure that they in structure are the same, because else you print in the wrong places. Let's try again to bring up the product for that. Yeah, you still see it. Perfect. To create a new page layer is simple. You choose new and page layer. It comes up with a paper in its design. You can even pick a page setup and change. And change the margins of this paper size. You can put in text boxes in the report, in the page layer. Let's make that a little bit higher. And type in the text. This is a test. Go on. This is a test. You can put in boxes. You can put in chart. You can put in lines. It can be vertical, horizontal. It's in fact it is the layout in the background. But let's take a little bit more advanced one that I prepared. Let's open that and let's put out with it. You see my empty example. The reports file, and let's filter on page layers. I have here my first page layer. It's a nice picture, picture with fields there. So the majority of this page layer is just a picture, but there is also here a text box on it. And so the graphical design team, they created this picture for me as if it is a scan of an order. You can make variations of that, of course. I have 4 variations of the same page layer. Again on that, for example, take order 3. That's a little bit different. There's a slight background image in there, and that's the difference between those two page layers. Now let's look at a report that's using this. That's my orders report. This is how the report is designed, how it looks like. You don't see a page layer at this moment. You have to go to preview for that. But in the page layer expert, you will find that this report supports 4 page layers. And I turn them on and off based on a function. And this function says, I want to use page layer number 1, or 2, or 3, or 4, depending on a parameter of my report. So if I run my report here, I see my page layer in action. The order is nicely printed in this stop box. Here's access miles in there, not all access miles, and my printed information. And I can browse through my orders. If I go over to the Field Explorer here and change a parameter, let's take this parameter here and change it, and make it from a change from 3 to 2. So I want to have page layer 2 in action. And I go to my preview again, I refresh my data, and then I have the other page layer back. This page layer does have a static text here. The other one didn't have that. But the layout, the white areas are the same. So that is the requirement in that case for a page layer. But it nicely fills in the space inside your report. Down, you see that order total at the end. That is the action, the page layer in action. Let's go back to the presentation. But include that here. Now how to create a page layer and order window on the page layer. In the area of images, we enhanced the product by the ability to store images to make use of images stored in the database. We support all the database formats. We support DataFlex and runtime data source, so the RDS can also have an image in there, or an ODBC database. And we changed another property on images, that is the display option. Do you want to have the image filled out in the area? Do you want to have it fit? Or do you want to use the original, which means that it will be somehow clipped? How do you create that? How do you work with that? Let's go back to the report. And let's quickly create an ODBC-based report. I go to ODBC, and I go to my AdventureWorks 2012 database, log in. That's one. Okay, log in on my database, see my tables, and let's take the product photo data table. There you are. And product photo and product itself. They link nicely together from SQL, so I don't have to do anything there. I do want to have some columns from this AdventureWorks table. Let's take the product photo table and let's make use of the large photo data field and to put it in my report. Next, paper size is okay, fine. And if I run this report, I get nicely the pictures in there. There are also some very bad quality pictures in there, but yeah, we can't do that. We can't do anything about that. Strangely enough, if I set a filter, if the product is still sellable, then you don't see these bad images. So they probably put in those bad images on purpose. Yeah. But the images are bad just in the database. There's nothing in the product there. Now, let's go further. Another thing that we really enhanced was mainly done for German and Eastern languages, is we changed the collating sequence feature of the product. Previously in DataFlex Reports, it was using the same collating sequence as your DataFlex programs, based in DF collate CFG. But there are some limitations that make it that we said we need to change that. One of the things is that it is now an ANSI-based collating file. It is saved with the report, so if you create your report and you use a collating sequence, it will be stored in the report, so if you send out a report to another customer, it will use the same code page no matter what is installed on this machine. Well, no matter. The third point is of course valid, and it says it checks the saved code page in the report against the running code page on that machine. If they don't match, you get an error said, I can't use this. You need to correct that. That's not another way. But it is not doing wrong sorting, and that's very important. A nice extra feature is the sorting based on weight, character weight. So you can say, in the small picture shows that, you can say what characters are sorted equally. Yeah? So the A and the A with a trema and an accent Q, etc. on it, they all sort the same. And at least that's what you can specify there. It comes with a couple of redefined code pages to be used. In the area of the function editor, we enhanced with two main features. There's also, you can also see that with the function export, because that's using the same dialog. It includes a list of the global variables in your report, so you quickly can see what global variables are in use and don't need to search for or go back and make typos in your global variables. And we got a large number of new functions. I'm not going to read them out all, but they enhance the product with easier ways to filter, to be used in the report. In the same function editor, we now group constants in categories. The constants group in the language element became quite long and quite unsorted, and it was hard to find the right constant, so we made an enhancement to group them. The editor brought back the OK and cancel button. There was a thing that people were missing in the 3.0 version, so we enhanced it again. The Field Explorer itself has enhanced by having a feature that can show a different image when a field, a database field, a function, a parameter, or a special field is in use. And you can see that there's a small V in the image there. Currently we're working on an improvement, a speed improvement enhancement on that. For smaller reports it worked fine, but we got a couple of very heavy reports there, and it turned out that it was taking way too much time, so I'm trying to make that faster, and that will succeed. But it is not in the current version. You can also double click on a function or a parameter entry, and it opens the dialog. Previously you had to do a right mouse click or a button in the toolbar, but now you can do a double click in there. And the tables under these database fields are sorted in alphabetically order. They were previously using the order that you used when creating the report. The report explorer itself shows a different image per field type. Previously it showed just one image for everything, but I think this is more clear that it is a text field and a database field and an image. And it shows the content of a page layer during definition, so if you have the page layer opened and you have your report explorer opened, the report explorer of course shouldn't show the content of the other report or an empty one, so it shows now the content of the page layer itself. This is another announcement we had. Previously if you made a report based on RDS, runtime data source, and you were refreshing your report, you were previewing it, it was also always coming up with a dialog that says you have to confirm your RDS test data, and suddenly if you had multiple tables, you had to click a couple of times before you really got into your preview. And every time again, So we made that option still available, but you need to turn it on explicitly. By default it is turned off. And editing the RDS test data is now done in a new dialog in what you can see on the screen, an edit RDS table data dialog. So it's easier to set up the test data. In the RDS table definitions we also made an enhancement. We made it more clear that you can't type in a precision for some column types. We check if you have a duplicate column name. Seems to be obvious, but there were some reports coming in from people who said this report doesn't run, and they turned out to have a column name defined double in their report, in their definition. And while DataFlex Reports itself doesn't mind about the column name, for RDS it is using SQLite in memory, and SQLite said, you're not going to create me a table with a duplicate column name. So I'm checking that now to avoid that you do that. And we give a warning and therefore you can't do that. We also built in workspace support. What does it mean? You can start the designer, the studio with -X, that's the same flag as anywhere else in the DataFlex product, and pass it either the WS or the SWS file name. And what will that do? It will automatically load the DataFlex embedded database for that workspace. And so if you then, after you're passing the parameter, say create a new report, it already expands the DataFlex database. You don't need to select your SWS file, find it, select it, expand it. In future I would like to make enhancements in SQL in this. So if you have an SQL workspace based on INT files with SQL, we advise you not to use INT files inside the report. It will slow down the experience. But I would like to pick up the databases from your INT file and present, and expand ODBC branch, map the whole information there. That's not there at this moment. We'll not get into there in the 4.0 because we are, what we say, feature complete. We are only working on bug fixes. But I want to do that in the future. And the last point, I think that's also very nice, is it does do an autocorrect of the data source location in your report. Again, for the DataFlex table at this moment. Which makes it easier to run a report that is stored with a different data source location. So if you have if you take one of the example reports that comes with DataFlex, it might have a different path there than the install path that you use for DataFlex yourself. And by passing this -X, it will autocorrect that path for you, so you can immediately run the report without going to set data source location. And the change is not marked as a report change, so you will not be bothered by a question at the end that says, do you want to save? By the way, if you make changes in the layout, it will save this change. That's because it is part of the report structure. Now, other enhancements we made, we improved remote desktop support. Small things like size to section height. We created a tooltip for a report name. So as you can see in the picture, with this report was called RDS with image. And we now have in the tooltip a full path to the file, so that you know what file item is opened and what I'm looking for. Better DPI scaling support, it should be in there, that's also included. You double click on a field in the designer, it does do a default option. Previously it was only doing this for edit function, and I believe it was only edit function. You can enter decimal font sizes if you want. Previously you couldn't do that. You can do browse data on RDS columns. Previously it also always showing an empty dialog. You do have not that much RDS test data in a report. So it does not bring very much extras, but at least it shows what your test data for that column have available. A lot of other smaller things like add a column in a new report where it automatically advances to the next column, makes it easier to build up a report quicker in doing that. In the area of the integration library, we added DataFlex 18.0 support, of course, and we dropped DataFlex 15.1 support. Technically, you could use the integration library with 15.0, but the wizard that we created that switched from old grid styles to Gojo grids, and Gojo grids are not important, are not available in the 15.1 product for DataFlex. So yeah, we dropped that as supported for the integration library. But it's just pure of the wizard. We reduced the whole preview window class within your Windows application. There were some flaws in there that it was not doing it right when you were resizing. It was not always doing the right things with key presses. We really completely renewed that, and it looks much better, and much better, I hope, bug-free even. But let's hope that we get enough testers aboard. Now, one thing we removed, and that's one thing that you need to do as well. If you're migrating from a previous version, we removed the function to set the collating sequence file, because collating is now stored in the report I just mentioned, and so you can't set it to a df collate CG. So that is removed from the whole integration library. We renamed all classes and constants. We felt that was needed. We couldn't go with classes like CVisual Report while it is DataFlex Reports. So we changed all those names. Luckily enough, the acronyms are very easy to do. We didn't create a wizard to update your source code, because you can quite quickly do it yourself with using the DataFlex Studio search and replace option. This box with red text here is also present, or is taken from the README file. Just type in VRW in a find and replace it by DR, and you're fine. Then you should be running your reports in the newest version. Last but not least, we created a feature in the wizard to, at the same time that you're running the report, that you make the integration, create a new report. Previously, you could only open an existing report, so you had to design it before in the studio, but now you can create a report on the fly. I quickly want to show you that in a product, in the integration product. So let's close this one. Studio. I'm using a SQL database for this, and it's even a web application. So I start up my DataFlex Reports wizard, and it comes up there. And previously you could only select a report, but now you can say, I create a new RDS table report wizard using data dictionaries. I also have an idea to make it without data dictionaries, but currently it's only doing data dictionaries. And I want to make an RDS table on the person table. So let's take the person data dictionary here, press next, and have this person bring in the title. Whenever I selected the first time a column and there's not yet an RDS table defined, it says from what main table should, so what data dictionary should be used for finding. And in this case we want to do it on person, so I select from person and take the last name, first name, index to find my data. So I have my title there, I have my first name, my middle name and my last name. I can change, of course, the order here of all the columns. I can change properties like the name. I can give it a totally different name, but let's not do that here. At this moment, the report is created in memory. It asks me for a new name. Just accept, in this case, for this demo, the standards. Oh, yeah, we'll overwrite that. And then it continues the same way that it is before, integrating that report inside your environment. So let's just continue with that. Don't make use of selections, don't make use of sortings, you can do that. And here you select your output mechanism, whether it should be PDF, TIFF, GIF in formatting, where it should go, and let's continue here next. And have my report created and my report view created. If you look at the report view, there's the person data dictionary there, because that is in this workspace available. And if I look in my code, it has here the find loop that browses through the data in my person tab. If I now just run it, that will take a while because there's quite a lot of data in this table. So I want to make use of a filter here and set up a filter in my person data dictionary to filter my data, turn on the SQL filters, and add here information that says title it equals to quote quote, enter, and if I run now my report, compile my application and run the report, I bring it up, I type in the login information, and I run my report, new RDS report, run it, and it filters out the data from the tables. It's running a bit slow because it is using the debugger in the background, and it's producing 54 pages of RDS-based data, and you can finish your report and make it nicer using fonts, less space in the detail section, etc. Just in the report designer. So that is an enhancement that we made also in the product. So that in fact that it concludes my presentation in this case. Anyone questions? No questions? Then I think we should go for lunch. Right?
Thank you.